This is section 6.5. We're going to be talking about linear inequalities. A linear inequality is going to be something like ax plus b and some sort of inequality symbol like less than, greater than, less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to another number. So, specific example, 2x plus 3 is greater than or equal to 7. That would be an example of a linear inequality. To solve an inequality, that's the process of finding the set of numbers that makes an inequality true. And a solution set is the set of all numbers that satisfy the inequality. So some definitions to get you started. Graphing. So let's suppose we have this. This is red, the set of all x. This line is read such that x is less than 3. So one more time. The set of all x such that x is less than 3. Now, what that means is x has to be less than 3. So on a number line, we're going to have 3. And we have to be, as long as the x is on the left, if you look at this arrow right here, it will actually point in the direction you have to shade. Now there's two different ways we can indicate is less than. We can either use an open circle and shade to the left. The other way, which is actually my preference, and I prefer to see that instead, is parentheses opening in the direction of the shading. So I would actually prefer that you draw your number line like the top example rather than the bottom. I don't want to see open circles, I want to see parentheses. And if you took Algebra 2 last year, actual Algebra 2 instead of Proficiency Algebra 2, then this is the same as what we did in Algebra 2 class. All right, so x is greater than or equal to -1. We've got -1 greater than or equal to. We're going to shade to the right. And if it's greater than or equal to, we're going to use a bracket. So anytime it has that equal to symbol underneath there, then you use a bracket instead of parentheses, and it is going to open in the direction of the shading. Now, if you're going to use the open and closed circles, which I prefer that you do not do, this would be a closed circle. Shading to the right. And the last one, notice the x is between the -1 and the 3, so you have -1 and you have 3. So since the x is between the two numbers, you're going to shade in between the two numbers. Less than is going to be parentheses. Less than or equal to is going to be a bracket. Solving linear inequalities, it's the same as when you solve an actual equation with one exception. When multiplying or dividing both sides of the inequality by a negative number, not positive, negative, reverse the direction of the inequality symbol. So if I have 2x is less than 6 and I divide by a positive 2, I get x is less than 3. However, if I have 2x is less than -8, sorry, I said that wrong, -2 is less than a positive 8. I put that down wrong. This time I have to divide by -2. I'm dividing by a negative, therefore this symbol has to switch. So x has to become a greater than, and I don't remember if that was a positive 8 or not, so I'll make it positive. Positive 8 divided by -2 will give me a -4. So when multiplying or dividing by a negative number, you have to reverse the direction of the inequality symbol. Don't forget, if you're going to get these problems wrong, that's usually why. All right, so solve. Well, just as if this were equal to, I would get my x's on the same side. So I can either subtract 6x or I can subtract 8x. I'm going to subtract 6x so that my x's are positive. It's always easier to work with positive x's when you have the opportunity. Subtract 2. And divide by 2. You get negative 7 is greater than x. All right, now I don't want the x on the left. When it's equal, it doesn't really matter, but for this, I want the x, what did I say? I don't want the x to be on the right, I want the x to be on the left. So you're going to rewrite it so the x is on the left. Now make sure, see how this is pointing towards the x? It still has to point towards the x. Okay? So x is less than negative 7. It says graph it, graph the solution. So you need to graph it as well. As long as the x is on the left, the arrow points in the direction that you shade. Is less than is parentheses. And so here is your graph. Okay, this is called a three-part inequality. You solve it exactly the same, but instead of doing something in two different places, you now have to do something in three places. So I have negative 3 is less than 2x plus 1 is less than or equal to 3. You have to get the x by itself, so I need to subtract 1, but instead of doing it in two places, I have to do it in three. So subtract 1, make sure you remember to subtract it in three different places. 2x is less than or equal to 2. Got to divide by 2 in three places. Don't forget all three places. And I end up with negative 2 is less than x is less than or equal to 1. And a graph. I've got my negative 2. I've got my 1. Shade in between because the x is between. Is less than, parentheses, equal to gives me a bracket. And your homework.